from Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. World number one Novak Djokovic wins a stunning victory over the Australian government, overturning the cancellation of his visa on COVID health grounds and ending his detention. 9 children are among at least 19 people killed as a fire tears through a high-rise apartment building in New York in one of America's worst residential fires in recent memory. And a Myanmar junta court convicts Aung San Suu Kyi of 3 criminal charges, sentencing her to 4 years in prison in the latest in a slew of cases against the ousted civilian leader. And The Power of the Dog and West Side Story on Sunday took the top film prizes at an untelevised Golden Globes, largely ignored by Hollywood, where winners were unveiled via a live blog without any of the usual A-list glamour. First to the U.S., 9 children were among at least 19 people killed and dozens injured when a fire tore through a high-rise apartment building in New York in one of America's worst residential fires in recent memory. At least 200 firefighters responded to the blaze, which broke out just before 11 a.m. on the second and third floors of a 19-story building in the Bronx. And witnesses reported seeing trapped residents screaming for help from windows during the deadly inferno that the city's fire chief said had been caused by a portable electric heater, leaving victims on every floor. Take a look.
19 deaths. 9 of them are children, are babies that we lost. And we're all feeling this. And we're going to be here for this community to help them navigate through this. Many of these young...
It started in a malfunctioning electric space heater. That was the cause of the fire. The fire consumed that apartment that is on 2 floors and part of the hallway. The door to that apartment, unfortunately, when the residents left, was left open. It did not close by itself. The smoke spread throughout the building, thus the tremendous loss of life and other people fighting for their lives right now in hospitals all over the Bronx.
I'm devastated. I live in this building for 16 years and I never experienced something so sad. There was a lot of kids crying, help, help, help. Yeah.
You heard kids saying help, help, help?
And yeah, from my window, we couldn't breathe. But yeah.
Absolutely.
It's very terrible. I lived there for 6 whole years and I have never seen nothing like this. I don't know what causes that fire to have broken up like this. Actually, due to all the smoke and just inhaling it, it's just so thick. And it's like you cannot breathe. It's like you're being suffocated. So it took me at least 30 to 35 minutes just to reach the hallway to where the staircase was and for me to get down those 6 flights of stairs.
New York City Fire Department Commissioner Daniel Negro told reporters that the fire started in a bedroom in a portable electric heater. He said that flames quickly engulfed much of the structure and that the smoke was so dense as to be unprecedented. He explained that the fire originated in a duplex apartment on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the building. And Negro said the fire was the worst in the city since a blaze at Happy Land nightclub in 1990 in the Bronx, which killed 87 people and had been caused by arson. In other news, a baby lost during the chaotic evacuation of tens of thousands of Afghans at Kabul airport has been reunited with his relatives after 5 months, his elated grandfather has said, and the boy's father handed 2-month-old Sohail Ahmadi to a foreign soldier among jostling crowds desperate to flee the Taliban after the Islamists seized the capital in mid-August, and the pair were separated, and what happened next is unclear, but taxi driver Hamid Safi said he found the baby crying and alone on the floor of the airport the same day. Take a look.
دیگه ما مثل اولاد خود نگاهش کردیم واقعا دوست شام داریم من دیم درست شده که با بابا تسلیمش کردیم واقعا خودم بسیار احساس خستگی میکنم میام پیشش صبح دیگه پیش آمدن دینشوی را آوردن ما بسیار خسته بودم میخواستم شب 10 بجه بیم چون نشد باز صبحکی 6 بجه بود پیش آمدم طرف های 7 بجه رسیدیم دیگه واقعا ما زیاد که از یونس گرفتیم زیاد دوستش
و با جستجوی ازی بودیم که میرزا علی از امریکا با ما به تماس شد گفت که اما تفلک گفت که بچه ما پیدا شدن فقط سلب چای بودیم ما و خانمون دیگه مقصد بگریه شد از احساس و از خوشی دیگه مقصد ما بگریه شدیم دیگه مثل صبح که دیگه چای خوردن تانستیم ما بسیار با حوصله بودیم ولی همین نمازهای خدا بسیار دوست داشتیم.
Sohail's father, Mirza Ali Ahmadi, searched for 3 days at the airport for his missing son, finally choosing to board a flight to the United States with his wife and 4 other children. Kabul's only airport was trashed in August when tens of thousands of people scrambled to evacuate on any available flight as the U.S. wrapped up their withdrawal from Afghanistan after 20 years of war. It was only days ago that relatives of Sohail's were tracked down in Kabul with the help of social media and police, and the boy was handed to his grandfather in a heart-wrenching goodbye for the Safi couple and their 3 daughters. On Sunday, Sohail's grandfather, Mirza Mohammed Qasemi, invited the Safi family to his home in Kabul to spend time with the boy, who was showered with affection. In other news, world tennis number 1 Novak Djokovic won a shock victory in his bid to remain in Australia Monday, with a judge ordering his immediate release from immigration detention. Judge Anthony Kelly abruptly ended days of legal wrangling after the state dropped its decision to revoke the star's visa. In an emergency online court hearing, the judge ordered that the decision to cancel Djokovic's visa be quashed. The judge ordered that the unvaccinated tennis superstar be released immediately and forthwith from immigration detention. The court's finding, read out in an online hearing, said the player was not given the chance to reply fully before his visa was torn up. In the early hours of Thursday, Djokovic was told he had until 8:30 a.m. to reply to the proposed cancellation of his visa. But instead, the border agent canceled it at 7:42 a.m. Had Djokovic been given until 8:30 a.m. as first promised, he could have consulted others and made submissions to the delegate about why his visa should not be canceled, according to the judge. According to a transcript of the airport interview, Djokovic told the border control agent, quote, "I just really don't understand what is the reason you don't allow me to enter your country." Though it had no bearing on his court case, Djokovic's claim of a positive test on December 16 stirred controversy after it emerged he had attended a gathering that day for the Serbian National Postal Service launching a stamp series in his honor. Person believed to be tennis star Novak Djokovic is seen in a car here, as you see here, leaving the Immigration Detention Center in Melbourne on Monday morning around 9:30 a.m. local time. Meanwhile, Kyrgios said Monday that he has tested positive for COVID-19, casting major doubt over whether he can play at next week's Australian Open. The polarizing Australian was due to play his first match of the season at the Sydney Classic, but pulled out just hours before his evening clash with Italian Fabio Fognini. "Hey everyone, I just want to be open and transparent with everyone. The reason I have had to pull out of Sydney is because I tested positive for COVID," he said in an Instagram story. "I am feeling healthy at the moment with no symptoms, and I wish everyone all the best and to stay safe where you can. If all goes well, I will see you all at the Australian Open," unquote. The 26-year-old 20-year-old crowd pleaser is widely seen as Australia's best player, despite his world ranking slipping to 114 after a lengthy period away from the game. He hasn't played since the Laver Cup in late September, citing a knee injury. Despite his on-court antics, Kyrgios remains wildly popular at home. His absence from the Australian Open would be a major blow because he regularly attracts packed stadiums and bumper television audiences when he plays at Melbourne Park. Here in the country, the number of fresh coronavirus infections soared to 33,169, the highest since the start of the pandemic in March 2020, according to the Department of Health today. In its latest COVID-19 bulletin, the agency said this brought the total active case tally to 157,526 out of a total of 2,998,530 infections since the start of the pandemic. Monday's figure of new cases surpassed Sunday's 28,707. Another 3,725 recoveries were also recorded, accounting for 93% of the total number of confirmed infections. The regions with the most cases in the recent 2 weeks were the National Capital Region with 18,535 or 56% of new infections, Calabarzon with 7,443 or 23%, and Central Luzon with 3,403 or 10%. The death toll has reached 52,293 with 145 new deaths, representing 1.76% of overall cases. Staying in the country, the Department of Health said today no recorded cases of the said coronavirus disease variants IHU and the Delta Cron or Delmicron have been detected in the Philippines, and that the country's local experts are still studying these. In a statement, DOH said that only the World Health Organization can validate coronavirus disease variants IHU, Delta Cron, and Flurona, and determine if they are variants under monitoring, variants of interest, or variants of concern. Infectious disease expert Dr. Edsel Salvana has explained that Flurona, the combination of the influenza virus and COVID-19, is not an unusual phenomenon and has already occurred in the Philippines. Dr. Salvana said in a DOH press briefing that the first COVID death in the Philippines back in January was a Chinese national who had both influenza B, COVID-19, and Streptococcus pneumonia. Now, Deltacron or Delmicron, on the other hand, was said to be detected in Cyprus as a new strain that is a combination of Delta and Omicron. Meanwhile, the Metro Rail Transit Line 3 will begin offering free antigen tests to consenting random and volunteering passengers on January 11 as part of its efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In a Facebook post on Monday, the MRT3 said the free testing will occur from Tuesday until January 11, from January 17 to 21st, from January 24 to the 28th, and on January 31. Each station, it said, can accommodate 12 passengers per peak period or 24 passengers per day. The antigen testing, it said, will be performed by medical personnel from the South Superhighway Medical Center. And those who will participate will be asked to fill up a consent and contact tracing form before administering free antigen test. And those who test positive, it said, will be barred from boarding an MRT3 train and will be asked to immediately self-isolate, to contact their local government unit representative for health monitoring and confirmatory reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction testing. In other pandemic news, U.S. troops in Japan will stop making non-essential visits off base for 2 weeks from Monday as local officials in areas hosting the forces link them with a sharp rise in coronavirus infections. The announcement came as the government imposed new virus restrictions in 3 regions, including Okinawa, that host major U.S. bases or are near them. Many Japanese officials believe the recent COVID-19 clusters originated from infected American service members coming into contact with local residents. On Friday, Japan's foreign and defense ministers had warned their U.S. counterparts to implement stricter anti-pandemic rules for U.S. troops. Movement of USFJ or U.S. Forces Japan personnel outside of U.S. military-related facilities and areas will be restricted to essential activities only, read a joint statement from the Japanese government and the USFJ issued late on Sunday. Service members will also have to wear masks when they are outside of their homes, it added. In mid-December, the U.S. military reported clusters of cases among its members in the southern region of Okinawa, which subsequently saw a sharp rise of cases in the local community. Okinawan officials say the U.S. military reported 998 infections on base between December 15 and January 5. The island region hosts the bulk of some 54,000 U.S. troops in Japan. And Africa has registered more than 10 million coronavirus cases, according to figures from the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, covering 55 countries and a continent of 1.2 billion people. Infections have soared since the highly contagious Omicron variant was discovered in South Africa late November, prompting a number of countries on the continent to impose new restrictions. However, vaccine uptake in Africa, home to nearly 1.2 billion, has been low due to poor access to jabs and some vaccine hesitancy. And China reported more cases of the highly transmissible Omicron coronavirus variant on Monday, with authorities on high alert over flare-ups in major cities just weeks ahead of the Beijing Winter Olympics. The emergence of the fast-spreading variant is yet another test of China's zero-COVID strategy, with authorities already battling several outbreaks, including in Xi'an, where 13 million city residents were in their third week of lockdown. Fears grew about a cluster of infections in the northern city of Tianjin, which was linked to 2 Omicron cases reported Monday in the city of Anyang, around 400 kilometers away. On Monday, Anyang official Li Chao told reporters that sales of train and long-distance bus tickets out of the city have been suspended, while checkpoints have been set up on all highways out to ensure that the outbreak doesn't spill over into outside areas. Leave Tianjin unless essential to do so. The general public should not leave Tianjin unless essential to do so, according to city officials in a statement. And those who need to leave must obtain official permission and test negative for the virus within 48 hours of their departure. And Mexico reported more than 30,000 new coronavirus cases, setting a new 24-hour record and prompting some states to close schools, as experts warn the total case numbers are far higher than official statistics, given the low testing rates. The figure could be an underestimate, as there were 451,864 deaths associated with COVID up to December 2021, according to the National Population Register. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador this week recognized a rebound in the pandemic but ruled out any restrictions. One of the world's most popular tourist destinations, Mexico has kept its borders open and doesn't require any tests or vaccination passes from arriving travelers. Mexico is the 5th worst hit country, with the U.S. the most affected, with more than 836,000 fatalities, followed by Brazil, India, and Russia. And several thousand protesters marched in Brussels on Sunday to oppose anti-coronavirus regulations as European governments mull tighter rules in the face of the Omicron wave. There was no repeat of the violence that had marked previous larger demonstrations in the Belgian capital, although police intervened to surround a small group that approached the EU headquarters. As it marched through the city, the crowd, 5,000 strong according to the police, chanted freedom, freedom, and brandished banners denouncing what they called a vaccine dictatorship. Belgium requires residents to show a COVID certificate to enter bars, restaurants, and cultural events, and there have been several recent street protests. On Sunday, Health Minister Frank Vandenbroek called in a television interview for a parliamentary debate on tighter rules as Belgium sees COVID cases soar as the Omicron variant takes hold. Between December 30 and January 5, Belgium recorded an average number of 17,513 new coronavirus infections, up 96% on the previous week, and 169 hospitalizations per day, up 28%. Meanwhile, additional vaccination sites are set to open in Quezon City this week to accommodate more residents and intensify the city's vaccination program. Aside from making more accessible drive-through and house-to-house vaccination for the bedridden, the city will add 21 special pop-up sites, 16 in malls and other establishments, and 36 regular venues. School grounds will also be utilized as additional inoculation sites since face-to-face classes have been suspended anew due to rising COVID cases. The Smart Araneta Coliseum, which serves as the city's mega vaccination site, will reopen on January 15. The city's 3 hospitals, Novaliches District Hospital, Quezon City General Hospital, and Rosario Maclang Bautista General Hospital have vaccination areas within their compounds, while some private hospitals such as Providence Hospital and Montano Ramos General Hospital also committed to help through the Adopt a Barangay program where they will accommodate select villages. To Canada now, where the health minister said he believes mandatory COVID vaccines in Canada are inevitable. Here's Thomas I. Likeness for more.
Canada's health minister says he believes mandatory COVID-19 vaccines in Canada are inevitable. Jean-Yves Duclos says the country's healthcare system is under pressure and can't take much more.
What we see now is that our healthcare system in Canada is fragile. Our people are tired, and the only way that we know to go through COVID-19, this variant and any future variant, is through vaccination.
Just how bad is the situation? Duclos says in his province of Quebec, they're struggling to try to treat people.
50% of hospitalizations now in Quebec are due to people not having been vaccinated. That's a burden on healthcare workers, a burden on society, which is very difficult to bear and for many people difficult to understand.
Duclos says current public health measures such as masking and social distancing just aren't enough to tame the COVID-19 virus and its variants. Duclos says individual provinces will have to make decisions on mandatory immunization, and he adds discussion on the issue cannot be avoided.
So that's why I'm signaling this as a conversation which I believe provinces and territories, in support with the federal government, will want to have over the next weeks and months.
COVID case numbers in Canada are at an all-time high, according to Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Teresa Tam. Case numbers went up by 65% in the last week, and she says they are 4 times as high as the peak of the third wave. In Europe, several countries are either implementing or considering mandatory immunization. In Greece, for example, people who are not vaccinated for COVID-19 by the 15th of January, well, they'll be fined €100. That works out to 113 American dollars, and that's per month. Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News International, Edmonton, Canada.
Thank you, Thomas. And Eagle News will be back right after this break.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Ngayong may pandemya, marami ang walang trabaho at mataas ang presyo ng bilihin. Isa sa nakikitang solusyon para makaiwas sa pagkagutom ay ang pagtatanim. May ilan, problemado sa espasyo dahil maliit ang kanilang lugar. Pero may sagot riyan para makapagtanim, ang hydroponics. Sa hydroponics, hindi ginagamitan ng lupa ang pinagtataniman, kundi tubig at nutrient solution lamang. Sa hydroponics, makakapagtanim ka ng gulay at kahit anong halaman. Masusolusyonan ang problema sa kagutuman at matutugunan ang seguridad sa pagkain.
Welcome back. A Myanmar junta court on Monday convicted Aung San Suu Kyi of 3 criminal charges, sentencing her to 4 years in prison in the latest in a slew of cases against the ousted civilian leader. A source with knowledge of the case told AFP the 76-year-old was found guilty of 2 charges related to illegally importing and owning walkie-talkies and one of breaking coronavirus rules. Junta spokesman Major General Zhao Mintun confirmed the verdicts and sentences and told AFP Suu Kyi would remain under house arrest while other cases against her proceed. The walkie-talkie charges stem from when soldiers raided her house on the day of the coup, allegedly discovering the contraband equipment. Besides Monday's cases, she is also facing multiple counts of corruption, each of which is punishable by 15 years in jail, and of violating the Official Secrets Act in November. She and 15 other officials, including Myanmar's President Win Myint, were also charged with alleged electoral fraud during the 2020 polls. Her National League for Democracy party had swept the elections in a landslide, trouncing a military-aligned party by a wider margin than the previous 2015 election. And since the coup, many of her political allies have been arrested, with one chief minister sentenced to 75 years in jail and others are in hiding.
We condemn all human rights violations.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday said that a Moscow-led military detachment deployed to counter unrest in Kazakhstan would remain in the Central Asian country for only a limited period. President Putin said the Collective Security Treaty Organization had dispatched troops following the request of Kazakhstan's president because the country was facing the aggression of international terrorism. The Russian president added during the meeting that the deployment of troops from former Soviet countries had sent a signal that leaders there would not allow revolutions to erupt within ex-Soviet countries. Take a look.
А мы наблюдаем именно агрессию международного терроризма. Откуда взялись эти банды вооруженных людей, прошедшие подготовку в зарубежных центрах и явно имеющие опыт боевых действий? После выполнения своих функций, безусловно, весь контингент будет выведен с территории Казахстана. Конечно, мы понимаем, что события в Казахстане не первая и далеко не последняя попытка вмешательства извне во внутренние дела наших государств, что мы не позволим раскачивать ситуацию у себя дома и не дадим реализовать сценарий так называемых цветных революций.
Ex-Soviet Kazakhstan has been left reeling in the wake of unprecedented unrest that erupted earlier this month in the midst of protest over a fuel price hike in the west of the country. And dozens are believed to have been left dead in the violence. And the Interior Ministry said Monday that nearly 8,000 people had been detained by security forces. Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev said during the meeting that the CSTO had dispatched 2,030 troops and 200 pieces of hardware. Meanwhile, top U.S. and Russian officials held crucial talks Monday on soaring tensions over Ukraine and security demands from Moscow, with little hope of a diplomatic breakthrough on the table. The high-stakes negotiations come with Russian troops massing on Ukraine's border and fears of an invasion, and Moscow demanding wide-ranging concessions from Washington and its NATO partners. The talks launched a week of high-stakes diplomacy between Russia and the West after Moscow amassed tens of thousands of troops at the Ukrainian border, drawing the U.S. and Europe into a Cold War-style standoff. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman and Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov opened their meeting at the U.S. mission in Geneva at 8:55 a.m. local time, according to officials. And pointing to a 2008 promise by NATO to consider membership for Ukraine and Georgia, Ryabkov said, are they ready to give legal guarantees that this country, as well as other countries, will not join NATO? I have a rather pessimistic forecast in this regard, he said. Sherman in the talks on Sunday stressed the freedom of sovereign nations to choose their own alliances, according to the State Department. The United States has warned of severe consequences of an invasion and that progress in other areas is impossible until Russia pulls back. Russia, which annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine in 2014, has demanded guarantees that NATO not take in new members or set up further bases in the former Soviet Union. And Moscow said it was promised at the end of the Cold War that the Western-led alliance would not expand. The last 7 years have been the hottest on record globally by a clear margin, the European Union's Climate Monitoring Service reported on Monday, as it raised the alarm over sharp increases in record concentrations of methane in the atmosphere. Countries around the world have been blasted by a relentless assault of weather disasters linked to global warming in recent years, including record-shattering wildfires across Australia and Siberia, a once-in-a-100-year heat wave in North America, and extreme rainfall that caused massive flooding in Asia, Africa, the U.S., and Europe. In its latest annual assessment, the Copernicus Climate Change Service, or C3S, confirmed that 2021 had joined the unbroken warm streak since 2015, and it found that last year was the fifth warmest on record globally, marginally warmer than 2015 and 2018. Accurate measurements go back to the mid-19th century. The annual average temperature was 1.1 to 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels measured between 1850 and 1900, according to the C3S. And that was despite the cooling effect of the natural La Nina weather phenomenon. C3S Director Carlo Buontepo said these events are a stark reminder of the need to change our ways, take decisive and effective steps toward a sustainable society, and work towards reducing net carbon emissions. In other news, friends and families on Sunday mourned the deaths of 10 people who died when a cliff collapsed onto tourist boats on a lake in Brazil after 2 people missing in the tragedy were confirmed dead. Take a look.
Ontem, então, já havia ao todo 7 corpos naquele local, lá em Passos. Hoje de manhã mais um e agora com essa notícia total de 10 pessoas. Temos de concreto, havia uma embarcação de nome Jesus que estava ocupada por 10 integrantes. Esses 10 integrantes, até presente momento, eles não apareceram, né? E foram surgindo corpos e fragmentos de corpos.
On Saturday, a large rock fragment broke free of a ravine and plunged onto 4 boats in Furnace Lake in Brazil's eastern Minas Gerais state, as panicked tourists watch helplessly from other vessels. The bodies of the 2 remaining missing individuals were found Sunday by rescuers, according to Civil Police Commissioner Marcos de Souza Pimenta. More than 30 people were injured, including 9 who had to be hospitalized, according to authorities. The 10 who died were part of a group of family and friends on the boat that suffered the biggest impact from the rock fall, according to rescuers. The victims were all Brazilian nationals aged between 14 and 68, according to preliminary investigations. Tourists flocked to see the cliffs, caverns, and waterfalls that surround the green waters of Lake Furnace, formed by the hydroelectric dam of the same name. And Super Typhoon Rai, which ripped through the Philippines over the holidays, has created a massive emergency with huge and ongoing needs, according to UN humanitarians. Communities are still reeling from the effects of the typhoon, which made landfall in no less than 9 places across an area the size of Austria and killed some 500 people. Here's Brenda Barton from the World Food Program, describing the devastation that humanitarians have encountered. Take a look.
The needs are increasing every day. From the time that the humanitarian needs and priorities document was launched on December 24th, the needs have gone from 2 million people affected to 7 million. And there's still many, many areas that we've not been able to reach. Many areas without telecoms still today, without electricity. 1 out of, I think, 18 municipalities still do not have water. And of course, we're seeing incidents of diarrhea. We're really seeing a combination of factors on the ground that are of grave concern. The Philippines has already been a country that has had stagnant and high levels of poverty and malnutrition. In the particular area that was hit, and I'll even say one of the islands was a very famous tourist island, famous for surfing. People came from all over the world. In those areas, 90 to 95% of the houses have been destroyed. It started as a tropical storm and it quickly evolved into a super typhoon. And it just ripped across an area that is enormous, just really razing things to the ground, houses to the ground. The area that I saw, there was no building that was untouched, no house without a roof, but all houses without roofs. We have continued rains. We have communities that cannot go into houses or living in evacuation centers. And COVID, just like in other parts of the world, is now, of course, starting to rip through the Philippines with its highly dense population.
Now, to support the relief effort, the United Nations has launched a $107 million appeal, and WFP has requested $25 million of this for food, logistics, and telecoms. To date, however, the agency has received $4.7 million 3 weeks since the crisis began. Emerging economies should gird for possible rough times as the U.S. Federal Reserve prepares to raise interest rates and world economic growth slows because of the Omicron variant of COVID-19, the IMF warning this today. The International Monetary Fund, which is scheduled to release updated economic forecasts on January 25, said that for now, global economic recovery from the ravages of the pandemic should continue this year and next. But risks to growth remain elevated by the stubbornly resurgent pandemic, according to IMF economists Stefan Daninger, Kenneth Kang, and Helen Porson, writing this in a blog post. The highly contagious Omicron variant has spread like wildfire around the world since mid-December, causing record numbers of new COVID cases in the latest wave of the global health crisis. Given the risk that this could coincide with faster Fed tightening, emerging economies should prepare for potential bouts of economic turbulence, according to the economists, as these countries are also confronting elevated inflation and substantially higher public debt. The Fed has signaled that it will raise key interest rates sooner and more aggressively than it had planned in order to counter rampant inflation in the U.S. that is hitting U.S. households and consumption, the engine of economic growth in America. Higher interest rates mean financing costs for more or for some emerging economies with dollar-denominated debt will rise. The Power of the Dog and West Side Story on Sunday took the top film prizes at an untelevised Golden Globes, largely ignored by Hollywood, where winners were unveiled via a live blog without any of the usual A-list glamour. Take a look. Jane Campion's dark western, The Power of the Dog, became the second film directed by a woman to win the Best Drama prize. The film also won for Best Director and Best Supporting Actor for Cody Smith-McPhee. Steven Spielberg's West Side Story remake claimed Best Comedy or Musical, as well as Lead and Supporting Actress prizes for stars Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose. Will Smith and Nicole Kidman won the Best Actor and Actress Drama prizes for their turns in King Richard and Being the Ricardos, while HBO drama Succession led the television prizes. But none of the stars were present. The award races were hugely overshadowed by a long brewing row over ethical lapses by the organizers. The Hollywood Foreign Press Association, a group of 100-odd entertainment writers with links to foreign publications, has been accused of a litany of failings, from corruption to racism. The Globes are traditionally billed as Tinseltown's biggest party. In past years, the event was watched by TV audiences of millions and spawned frenzied debate. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Samahan ang paborito nating barkada sa umaga. Magbibigay ng saya, tawanan at iba't ibang pakulo sa inyong umaga. Matutong kumita, magluto, meron ding sayawan, at kantahan.
Ang dilag, ang dibdib, parang bato.
Ang programa na nagbibigay inspirasyon sa bawat kada all over the world. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 6 hanggang alas 8 ng umaga, dito lang sa Net25 at home kayo dito.
And the most powerful space telescope ever built completed a tricky 2-week-long deployment phase Saturday, unfolding its final golden mirror panel as it readies to study every phase of cosmic history. Engineering teams in the James Webb Space Telescope's control room cheered as confirmation came back that its final wing was deployed and latched into place. Take a look.
It's going to take us about 6 months to start receiving those pictures. But when we do, as you have had Michelle explain to you, the horizon is not the limit.
Today represents the beginning of a journey for this incredible machine to its discoveries that it will be making in the future. JVST itself is an amazing mission, and thousands of people have worked on it. It is not as easy as it looks, but the easiness that you saw, again, like I mentioned earlier, is just a tribute to the folks. Everyone is doing excellent. I think everyone is extraordinarily excited at this point. I don't think there was one point during the entire last 2 weeks, and even the period leading up to launch, down at the launch site, where anybody felt down, slowed down. I mean, we're all a little tired, but besides that, we are on an incredible high right now.
All right.
Webb, the successor to Hubble, blasted off in an Ariane 5 rocket from French Guiana on December 25 and headed to its orbital point, 1 million miles or 1.6 million kilometers from Earth. Though Webb will reach its space destination known as the second Lagrange point in a matter of weeks, it still has around another 5.5 months of setup to go. Its infrared technology will allow it to see the first stars and galaxies, giving astronomers new insight into the earliest epoch of the universe. And earlier this week, the telescope deployed its 5-layered sun shield, a 70-foot-long kite-shaped apparatus that acts like a parasol, ensuring Webb's instruments are kept in the shade so they can detect faint infrared signals from the far reaches of the universe. The sun shield will permanently be positioned between the telescope and the sun, Earth, and Moon, with the sun facing side built to withstand 230 degrees Fahrenheit. Visible and ultraviolet light emitted by the very first luminous objects has been stretched by the universe's expansion and arrives today in the form of infrared, which Webb is equipped to detect with unprecedented clarity. Its mission also includes the study of distant planets to determine their origin and habitability, according to scientists. And as always, I'll end the day on a thoughtful note. Challenges may often come our way, but sometimes it takes a good fall to know where we really stand. And this has been Eagle News International. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay alert and stay informed because we live in interesting times. Good night.
maliwanag ang mundo pag magkasama tayo. Life is so much sweeter, everything feels better pag tayong lahat ay together. Let's have fun together.
Let's play together.